Nighttime workers of Reddit, what's the freakiest stuff you've seen on the job? I worked at an all-night diner while I was in college. One night at about 2 in the morning, a 4-year-old boy wandered in and said he was there to get some food for him and his little sister because they were hungry. When the manager asked where his parents were, he said they were sleeping at home and that they slept a lot and yelled at him and his sister to be quiet a lot. Turns out he lived at an apartment complex adjacent to the diner and the parents were heroin addicts. It was heartbreaking. I used to work nights in a hospital setting. At one point, I was taking the city bus to work. There was a lady who got off the bus and left her baby. The bus driver pulled the bus over and tried to find her, but it was nighttime and he couldn't find her. He called the police. Before the police got there, the woman came running back, realizing that she had forgotten something. My boss did not believe me when I told her why I was late. Train inspector here, walking a train in the middle of the night, pitch black, come up to a freight car that had 4 hobos sitting in it, just staring at me. Dudes never said a word, just watched me. I eased by them and kept going, but couldn't get past the feeling of them behind me for a good while. I worked nights at a dog kennel. During the night we'd just walk the dogs around the parking lot so they could go to the bathroom. The parking lot was surrounded by a wooded area on most sides. There was a stray cat colony living in the woods behind the parking lot. Every time I'd walk a dog through the parking lot, the cats would sprint away and hide in the woods. They did not like the dogs at all. They were terrified of them. One night I'm walking a dog and I see the cats, but this time they are sprinting out of the woods toward me. All the cats just kind of gather in the middle of the parking lot, completely ignoring the barking dog I had. It definitely freaked me out what was out in the woods that scared the cats out so much that they came running towards me and a dog they were usually terrified of. It was probably just a few coyotes or something, but it felt really creepy wondering what was scaring the cats so badly just out of view in the woods. Was standing topside watching the Navy at sea on a dark night when the sky suddenly turned bright. For about 3 seconds something was incoming so bright it lit all the weather decks up like daylight. This caused quite a commotion in the bridge and operations. We were forward deployed during wartime, although not in a region where active fighting was expected. Obviously everyone's worry was that we might be under attack. Then the sky went dark again, just as suddenly as it had began. The only one on the ship who had a direct view was me. It's a meteor. Had to repeat that report with details a bunch of times until people calmed down. The thing broke up into 3 pieces and then vaporized in the atmosphere. It was possibly one of the southern Taurids. Right time of year, right part of the globe, and that meteor shower is known for producing fireballs. Being hundreds of nautical miles out on a moonless night, it was truly spectacular. That was far and away the most dramatic meteor I've witnessed, both in terms of the show it put on and in terms of the context. Lucky coincidence to be an astronomy buff standing the right watch at the right moment. Worked 3rd shift stocking shelves in a grocery store. Every couple of nights, a sweet little old lady would come in to buy vanilla extract to make sugar cookies for her grandkids and the neighbors. A few weeks go by, and I'm outside on a smoke break. I see our sweet grandma in her car, chugging vanilla extract. She was drinking it to get drunk and hide her alcoholism from her family. Years after that, I worked in a bar as a karaoke host. There was a hotel next door to the bar where some of the less fortunate people in town stayed. One of the hotel guests was a regular in the bar. This dude, his GF and I did a shot to celebrate him finding a good job and getting accepted to a trailer park. He goes next door to get a snack and says he'll be right back. 30 minutes later we see flashing lights outside. He got a snack of heroin, passed out in the parking lot next to his car, and had his head run over by another guest pulling into the adjacent parking spot. It bore a similarity to a watermelon at a Gallagher show. Post finale. I'll never unsee that. I grew up on a farm. One night I was supposed to check the irrigation pumps at 2 AM. It's a 2-mile drive and I'm mostly asleep. I park the truck with the lights aimed at the river. When I get out, the headlights are projecting my shadow on rapid layers of fog coming from the river. Above that, the fog was dissipating into the wildest northern lights display I've ever seen. It was like a sheet being violently shook from one horizon to the other. The farm has no sound or noise pollution. There was nothing else to obscure it. The northern lights have a sound. It's like sand on rough paper. So I took several moments to just take in my silhouette was joined visually to green mist across the sky that filled my vision and my ears. I was working overnight at a hotel and a guy came in with a hookah, super confidently pours out a little pile of coke on the counter, and tells me it's his payment for a room. He was more surprised than anyone should've been when it didn't work. Not freaky, but I was sitting on a loading dock at 3 AM, very dark, smoking a cig. Saw a cat and I tried to get it to come over. It did. It wasn't a cat, it was a raccoon. Still fed it a cracker. I'm a nurse, so I see a lot of freaky stuff working days at the hospital as well, but I used to work nights. There's a common phenomenon amongst dementia patients called sundowning. A dementia patient can be sweet and innocent all day, but once night falls they do a complete 180 and become agitated and often hostile. Also, more patients die on night shift for some reason. They always seem to want to crash around 3 AM. Not specific to working night shift, but dead people. I work in a nursing home and unfortunately people dying is the name of the game. Sometimes you see people declining, so you know they are on their way out, and you do 15-minute checks on them and catch it fairly quickly. Other times people seem fine, and they just go and you don't find them for an hour or so between doing rounds. I worked as an engineer in Denver. Unfortunately, being security detail came with the job considering the hours 2 PM 11 PM I was doing rounds, and we had noticed the previous day that a lock to our electrical room had been removed. It was midwinter last year and we figured someone was trying to stay warm. As much as I want people less fortunate to get ahead any way they can, it was my job to make sure there wasn't someone occupying some spot on the property. So I go to check on the room. I walk up and notice the door is cracked ever so slightly. Pop my flashlight out and beam it in there. Now the room did exactly what it was made for without any budge room. There was maybe slightly less than a foot of space between the wall and the machines that were in there. Thinking it would be impossible for someone to be crammed in there, I do a lazy scan and go to shut the door. As I'm walking down the staircase I hear a shuffling in there. It's late, there's nothing going on, and I was newish to the city, so seeing owls or big ass rats was somewhat a thrill. Easily entertained, I guess. So I go back up, pop out the flashlight again, but this time I crouch down to see the space beneath the machines. Sure enough, I see some legs. I call out to whoever it was and tell them they need to vacate. They stay still for a long moment until they started to wriggle themselves out from the tight space. I stayed there cause procedure would be to escort off the block entirely. A woman pops out, looking rough as heck and starts muttering absolute nonsense. She's taking her time, and it is pissing snow, so I start to get a little aggravated and tell her to hurry up. This woman turns to me, sticks her tongue out at me with her mouth gaping, broadens her stance and starts to dig in her crotch. She pulls out a warm, totally unused tampon and throws it at me, hitting me in the jaw/neck area. Then proceeded to clamber away, yelling something about murdering a molester. I stocked shelves at Toys R Us overnight for 5 years. One night, the entirety of 3 walls of board games, 5 shelves tall, 3 feet deep, fell to the floor. Everything, except for a single Ouija board. We left early that night. Worked as a office cleaner before virus, 11 to 7 AM as a one-man team. One stormy ass night, I was on the phone while working when my connection started to fade in and out. All of a sudden there is just a deafeningly loud shriek coming out my phone and the power goes out. Even the emergency lights. I remember looking out the window of the 10th and seeing the whole industrial park black. Nights make everything creepy. I worked the midnight shift at a crappy little gas station and saw a lot of weird stuff. The guy who claimed he was going to hit it big on the lottery. He would come in with an old baseball card album filled with his past lottery tickets. Like 10 years worth of old tickets. Each week he had a new scheme. Using crystals to divine the numbers. using previous winning number combinations, and dividing by specific numbers, etc. The lady who would always pay in pennies for the pack of Camel White non-filter, soft pack only. The meth addict who passed out in his car after buying a 44 ounces big gulp and a bunch of those energy pills. The same person who, once a month would steal a 12 pack, but because he was part of the manager's family, blind eyes were turned. One night during a floor set at VS, we were throwing away trash and going in and out of the stock room, cleaning the floor, removing merchandise, counting registers, opening boxes, etc. We had music blaring and we're singing, goofing off while working, and all of a sudden some lady walks out to the register and wants to purchase her items probably about 45 minutes after we closed and did the nightly routines of clearing out the fitting rooms, recovering the store, vacuuming. None of us knew she was there. None of us saw her. She wasn't in the store. She wasn't in the back. Not in the bathroom. Not under tables. We think she may have been hiding in the ceiling in the dressing room waiting for us to leave so she could rob the store, but since she realized we weren't leaving she thought it best to come out. It was the absolute scariest moment. I think there were 12 of us in the store that night, all over the place, and none of us saw her. What if she had a gun or a knife or something? She totally could have gone through our personal items and taking things. But she paid for random things and left. She acted like nothing out of the norm was going on. That's it for now. Thank you for watching the video. Leave your comments below. See you soon.